Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another lesson in the map making tutorial series. I know it has been several months since I have uploaded another episode. Been rather busy, unfortunately, with maps and life and moving and all these different things. So we're back at it finally. We're gonna start with the placeable system now, and hopefully, I'm guessing that I'm gonna make a bet here that in FS22, based off of what I've seen, the system will not change that much. I will have updated videos on how the placeable system works with FS22, but I'm going to safely assume that it's not going to change very drastically. I think they've got a pretty good system now. They might improve things in some places. So I'm going to go ahead and say that most of this information is probably going to be relevant for the next game. So we're going to start with animal placeables first, because that's how you kind of get animal placeables are the most complex placeables, I think, at least. And I think once you nail these down, you're going to nail all the other placeables down, because we'll do the animal placeable. We'll do like, maybe 2 or 3 episodes on this. And then we're going to move into other placeables like silos and whatnot, and how those function. And it'll be really easy to transition to that because you will have done these tutorials first. Okay. So we're going to look at the base game placeable animal husbandry, or cow husbandry. Okay. So there's a number of different components in this, and these components communicate with the XML file that is located in the base game files, and the XML file is going to be, how do I put it? It's going to be calling forth this i3D that we have right here. There's a line in the XML. I'll show you. Actually, let's just pull it up right now. I'll show you what it's saying. This is the file name right here, and we're looking at this right now. We're looking at, husbandry. This is small. We want large, but it doesn't really matter. They're not that much different. We can pull up the large one after this. So I'm gonna let's go through each of these different components that XML is talking to or trying to find when the game is reading through that XML. Okay, so we have the parent group, which is husbandry cow large. We have the animal load trigger. So this is where the animals obviously are going to be loaded and unloaded right here. And this is the box for it. Okay, we're not gonna like make all of these, the boxes and the triggers by hand. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I made my own custom animal placeable just by using the base game assets, and then substituting in like my own water trough or my own slurry pit or something like that. That's just going to be the easiest way to do this. So, I don't want to overcomplicate it for you guys. I know you guys just want an animal placeable. I'm just going to show you how to do it. So we have the cow stable. I normally substitute this. So this is an actual object. This is the parent group is actually the barn. What I normally do is I substitute in a transform group as this parent group instead of the 3D object. I'll show you that. I'll pull up one of my custom ones in the next episode and I'll show you. Just because I don't usually I bake these into the game, into my maps anyways, and the barns are already sitting there in the game. I don't want it to reprogram the animated doors as a placeable. I just want them baked into the map. So this is the best way of doing things. Okay. So we have the feeding trough trigger. This is the box in which you will be driving through in order to feed your cows with the mixer. So it's going to recognize this box when you're driving through this exact fill root node. Here, I need to. This needs to be above the ground, I believe. I don't think it can be too low where your mixer can't locate it. I think it needs to be above the ground, if I remember correctly, or any other thing that you're trying to get recognized by this trigger. Got animal places. This is where the animals are going to be dipping their head down to eat. These are just transform groups, but the XML will read these places. These need to be in the nav mesh. This is the navigation mesh. This is where the animals are walking around. I'll show you how to make that later. But this animal places usually needs to be in the nav mesh from what I remember. Otherwise it's going to crash your game when you buy animals. It sometimes it doesn't crash, but it's crashed like that for me because this was not within the navigation mesh or plane. Okay, food spill areas. Normally I nix this from the XML. I think it's stupid. I don't like having to clean up after the cow, so I just erase that line in the XML. But if you want it, it's here. These are in little boxes, little cubes or rectangles, basically. So you have the parent transform group. Then we have one of the piles, which shows up here. Can't really see it. It's hard. This is why I hate using this. So you have the width and the height. Okay, so that's a little box or rectangle, I guess, where that food will spawn. Okay, it'll spawn on the ground, and you got 4 of those. Okay, bale trigger. This is if you want to put it at, if you want to feed with a bale, you could take this trigger and you can put it in a bale ring. I don't do that enough, and I should. I keep forgetting to do it. It's something that I don't really pay attention to, but now I really want to use that more often. I'm assuming they'll have that for the next game, but yeah, you can take a bale, you can put it wherever this trigger is. You can relocate this trigger somewhere else in a bale ring, and it'll work. Okay, and then the cow stable plane. This is the food plane. So this is gonna be, let's see, this is at 0.1 translation. So in the XML, we'll pull it up here in a minute. The XML is going to be telling, it's going to be locating the food plane, and then it's going to be telling the game how high and how low this thing goes up and down. Okay. We have glass, not necessary. I don't know why that's in here. Dirt decals, I don't know why that's in this transform group at all. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. Water trough. I mean, maybe it makes sense because it's a part of the barn. Yeah, and you want to move the barn around. I don't know. Excuse me. The water trough, similar to the food plane. You got the actual i3D or the object. These cubes over here. That's object. You have the trigger, which is similar to the food. The exact fill root node, and you have the water plane. Okay, rising and falling, you're going to tell it how high and how low it goes, where it starts out and where it ends up as you're filling it. That's all going through the XML. Okay, liquid manure, same thing. Trigger, right here is where you fill. Manure plane, liquid manure. There it is, just like the water. Very similar. Writable delivery area. I have never known what this is. I don't understand it. I never use it. I typically zero all these out and then I just erase the line in the XML anyways. So I don't know what writable delivery area means. I don't know if it's like the actual dimensions of the placeable that is going to be actually placed down. I want to say that that's right, but I could be wrong. But if you're actually working with a placeable, you usually, and you're baking into the map, since this is a map making course, we don't really care about that line because we know the terrain's going to be leveled out for it. Everything, the grass is going to be painted around it. It's just going to be invisible when we're in GE technically, and then it's going to show up in game. Okay. If that makes any sense. But it will make sense when we get to it. Here's the milk trigger. Okay, we just have the trigger here, and then they have some, these visual objects, these milk cans. That doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be part of the placeable. Excuse me. I have a bit of a cough. Okay, manure heap walls. This one's, how the food spill areas had like little cubes showing off where that was filling up, where the food was filling up, piling up. Similar with manure. So we have a start point, which is right here. Width. That seems more like the height instead of the width, but okay. And height. Okay. And then you obviously don't need that fourth component because it's just going to it's already, where it is. Okay. So it's that area right there. Super easy stuff. Typically I put this, you don't need the manure actual pit. I replace this with a transform group. Instead of having this actual, U-shaped pit. And I'll just have one, I'll have it in the cattle yard or something like that. Not necessary. The straw trigger, similar thing to the water and the food. Pretty straightforward. Just drive through this trigger with your straw blower. This is, it blows it in here. I think this exact fill root node, I don't know if you can drive in here and fill that from there, or as if this is like how far it shoots out. I'm not actually certain about that. But we have straw planes, just like water planes. And this is under this parent transform group. This is going to be the one you're actually telling the XML how far up this one rises and falls. Okay, not this one, this one. I forgot to mention up here that this food plane right here has to be an object. It cannot be a transform group. Like, you know, glasses, all these glass panes are in a transform group. This one is in an object group, okay? And it has to be, so if you want multiple planes, you gotta like, you'll have this plane, and then let's just duplicate it, and then you'll copy and paste it underneath this one, and then you'll have to resize this one maybe, or place it somewhere else. It's pretty stupid, because this one's rising and falling. You want all the other planes. If you have multiple food planes, you want them rising and falling with it. Yeah, I hate it. The game will throw an error if that is not an object. If it is a transform group, I've tried having it as a transform group and then having multiple food planes underneath that transform group and telling the XML how that rises and falls. Doesn't work. It throws an error. It's really stupid. Okay, nav mesh. This one, you actually use the Giants editor to sort of bake. You tell Giants editor, hey, make this for me, basically. And it's that process is based off of, okay, so we're under visuals. We don't want fences or milk containers. That's fine. I usually have those as empty set groups. We have these nav mesh planes. Okay, let's toggle those on. So this is a whole bunch of planes. Pull this one out that are connected and overlapping. That the game is going to connect for you, basically, when we go to create a nav mesh, when we actually make our animal husbandry. It's going to connect all of those for us into what you see here. What's that light blue area? Here, it's going to and that's actually the actual area in which the animals are going to be roaming around. These cannot be, I have tried having these separate. So I've tried having it like this, let's say for like a hog barn where like there's separate pens. Okay, so like I've had it like this where there's this is a nav mesh over here, and then there's one over here, and then for some reason it will the cows end up freezing. Okay, it'll work. It'll create a nav mesh over here and a nav mesh over here, that light blue area, but the cows will freeze up, I think, because they're trying to navigate to this other navigation mesh, but they can't because it's not connected. I'm not entirely sure. I wish that actually worked. It doesn't. Okay, clear area. This is for actual placeables. This is like going to clear the ground area of any like grass. So this is where it is. I don't use these at all because we bake our placeables into the map. We've already done all of this work anyway, so there's no reason in having it in the map or in the placeable. Okay, level area. This is going to level, all these different areas. Too much work. It's too much work for us map makers. Okay, we don't need any of that. Ramp areas, again, too much work. That's ramp area is basically like where it curves off the sides of the placeable. Okay, foliage area. This is where the grass is painted. I think you can tell the XML what to plant, and I think it's always grass. And this is actually important for seasons right now with 19. I don't know how it's going to function in the next game, but this is how grazing works in seasons. Is you're going to toggle. The foliage area is going to tell seasons how much grass the cows have to feed off of. We have the warning stripes. I hate these. I always delete them, but this is where they are. They're just basically showing you where all the triggers are, all these little things. Okay, and you can turn them on and off. I think they're in the XML as well. I don't care about it. I delete the line because, again, map makers, we don't care. Okay, and then there's the gate trigger. So with placeables, you have to bake in the animated objects differently. Okay, so you had to have, if you want a placeable with animated objects like a gate, then you have to code it into the placeable, right? So the XML is going to try to find where this node is. These are called nodes, by the way. Instead of like thinking of these as transform groups, think of these as nodes, okay? And the numbers that correspond to these nodes right here, these index paths, that matters for the XML. These need to be in order, okay? That's very important. I should have said that at the beginning. These need to be in order. They cannot be out of order, or else you're gonna have to go in the XML and you're gonna have to change the order of everything, and you're change like the coding for where the XML is gonna have to look to find each of these things. You're gonna have to do that, and it's awful. I've talked to people who've done that, and it's just a nightmare. Don't do that. Keep most of them in the same spots and delete the lines that you don't need. Okay. And just keep all this in here for the most part. I mean, you could replace a lot of it with just transform groups, but yeah. And so so these gates this gate trigger is going to be in the XML as well, along with these gates, and the whole animated line for the placeable is going to be in the XML. I hate doing that. We're map makers. We don't care. We bake our gates into the map rather than baking them into a placeable. It does not make sense to go through all that work to bake it into the placeable. Bake it into the map. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it for this. We're going to keep this open. We're going to jump into the animated objects, or not the animated objects XML, the actual physical XML in the next episode. And I'm going to show you how that talks to this i3D. Okay. And then after that, we're going to go into making our own animal placeable. I'll show you what I do. And then I'll show you how to run the nav mesh and everything and how to get it to show up in game. And we'll run through the items XML really quick. We'll run through the mod desk, all that good stuff. Okay, so 2 more episodes on this, and then we're going to get into other placeables. Okay, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.